be looking at the headlines. And here we have it again, another fake phony suspect on our hands. Speaking of hands, take a look at this screen grab that I got from a video today. This is the acting U.S. Attorney for the Central District of California. I'm going to show you some of his hand gestures, but take a look at this policeman here. Do you see what I see? I think you do. If you've been on my channel for any amount of time over the last, well, let's see, I've been here since 2020, helping you read between the lies and develop your critical thinking skills so you don't get the wool pulled over your eyes by these public serpents and others who wish to deceive you. So these gestures and symbols are done intentionally. People that are new to my channel are going to justify it away saying, Peggy, I always do that. I always put my hands like that when I'm doing public speaking. Well, maybe you do, but there are those who are using gestures and symbols intentionally to signal that they're in the club, and it's a club that you ain't in. So we are told that there is a person, in this press concert, they told us that there is a person who is responsible for starting the Palisades fire. And I've got a picture of him. I have got so much here to share with you. Let me back up a little bit. Here's another gesture that these magicians like to use. I might start using that word. Charlie Kirk sure seemed to like that gesture quite a bit as well. And here we have, let's see if I can find the picture of the so-called perpetrator. Oh, there he is. Jonathan Rinderknecht. Well, probably a real name, wouldn't you say? He has a few aliases. Before we dive in anymore, I'd like to hear from you in a comment. What do you see that's strange about this picture? Right? What's this arm right here? I mean, is he in a police station? Where is this, the mugshot? Where's the booking number? Is he handcuffed? Is that why his arms are there? Well, we don't know his arms behind his back because we can't see that. But we have an unknown arm holding him there because, he might escape. And here we've got a headline, everything we know about Palisades fire arson suspect Jonathan Rinderknecht. A 29-year-old Uber driver and Palisades resident had a fascination with fire and history of burning his personal belongings. Well, if you have a fascination with fire and you have a history of burning your personal belongings, you certainly could do this kind of destruction. We're going to get back to Jonathan in just a moment. I do want to let you know that I've done in-depth videos about the LA fire, and this one was called The False LA Fire Narratives. The first one I did, I said, same old script, and these images that I don't really want to assault you with were taken from the footage that we were shown on the media there in LA. Now, I actually have a family member who lost her home sadly, in that area. And it really woke her up in terms of what is going on. But it's strange to me that we're told that one person could wreak this kind of havoc by just starting a fire. So, fireproof bricks are suddenly flammable. And cars have melted glass, the melted steel tires, they're steel belt tires, but the plastic trash cans are completely untouched. Just like Lahaina, the blue structures, sometimes green, basically were untouched. So I guess next time we should all build our houses out of blue plastic to make sure they're fireproof. Now, you wouldn't think that these fires would be started intentionally now, would you? Oh, I don't know, maybe because the LA Olympics are coming up in 2028, a few years from now. And many of you have observed, as I did, that this logo bears a curious resemblance to the Masonic logo. Let's take a look at that, shall we? Well, we've been looking at that quite a bit with the Charlie Kirk coverage because his so-called wife, Erica, has rings, or at least one gigantic diamond encrusted gold ring with a G on it, G Willikers. And she also has an M, which is another Masonic symbol. And I'm not saying that she herself is a Mason. There are probably layers and layers of secret societies. I wouldn't be surprised if her witchcraft goes all the way back to her Scandinavian roots. I'll probably have to cover that in detail in an upcoming video, but she certainly likes these Masonic symbols, as did Charlie. And so apparently does the whoever made this logo of the LA Olympics. Let's also not forget that Los Angeles wants to become a smart city by the 2028 Olympics. Gee, do you think Johnny there was in on it? Do you think Johnny helped clear the path so that the city of Los Angeles could get rid of all the deadwood, so to speak, and create a smarter city for the 2028 Olympics? Of course, the United Nations would have nothing to do with it, wanting to push for these smart cities to be, oh, I don't know, more green and more resilient and more sustainable. Stick with me, because at the end of this live stream, I'm going to share with you a couple whose house didn't burn, and they are using these phrases, green, resilient, and sustainable. And wait until you find out who the wife is. Oh, yeah. This is how I do my digging. Some people ask me, Peggy, how do you do your research? I just follow I connect the clots. I just follow the links. So yeah, we'll get to that in a moment. Well, here you have it. That one fellow who was fascinated with the history of fires, or I guess had a history of burning his own belongings, this is what he did. One person was able to decimate swaths and swaths of cities that weren't even close to each other. Don't be telling me that this was microwave energy now that makes it look like it was decimated by a bomb. Of course, Newscomb said it's because you have trees planted too close to your house. Well, what do you think about this, folks? The trees are still standing, in some places not even burned. So I guess Newscomb's theory is just a theory. But let's just pin it on this. Let's see what else I have for you. Oh, well, how do you like them apples? Tom Hanks, ironically, I mentioned him in a previous video. Some people didn't get the clue that he isn't who he says he is, if you know what I mean. Evil loves to invert, friends. I'll leave it at that. So this clip here says Hollywood heavyweight Tom Hanks must be thanking his guardian angel. The castaway actor's very large white modern mansion located on a cliff didn't burn down. Well, how lucky was that? Not as lucky as these poor people. Here's Newsom, and we learned that he cut $100 million for fire prevention before those wildfires, and there were basically no firefighters on the scene. Wouldn't you think that Newsom, who is always talking about climate change and how the fires are going to burn hotter and longer and more frequently, wouldn't he have increased the fire prevention budget by about, oh, I don't know, $1 trillion? Can't have it both ways, can you? He tries. He also put out this press release, an executive order to help Los Angeles rebuild faster and stronger. I guess he didn't want to use the phrase burn back better that I coined, which is very accurate, or build back better. So he came up with rebuild faster and stronger. Friends, I have an entire fire playlist with dozens of videos about all of the curious, unnatural fires if you would like to look at my playlist here. And remember, when you're looking at my videos on my YouTube channel, also click under live as well as videos, because I have a lot of videos that aired live and they are still there for you. So let's continue here. Gavin admits he is receiving advice from Hawaii's governor, your friend and not mine, Joshi Green Do Deal. That's his nickname. Or I should just start calling him Governor Band-Aid, with his bizarre fetish of wearing children's Band-Aids on his fingers. Yeah, draw your own conclusions, and some of you have. It's very despicable. And here, Governor Band-Aid was giving Governor Hair Gel some advice about buying up properties, having the government do that. Now, I would need to dive into seeing what's going on in terms of the rebuilding faster and stronger, because what I heard is that people are not getting permits to rebuild as quickly as Newscomb said they would. So here we are, back to this suspect, Jonathan Rinderknecht. Well, I don't know if that's a real person. I don't know if that's an AI image. I don't know if this is accurate, but I pretty much have a default mechanism of not believing what's being shown to me on the media. Think about it, friends. Now, you have this created suspect. Remember back in San Juan Capistrano, I think it was called the Tucker Fire? They created a suspect, and his name was Forrest. Get it? Forrest Fire. I'm surprised they weren't as clever with this fellow, although it does seem like a kind of strange name. I'm sure it is a real name. I did look it up before I came online. And again, if you'd like to do a little digging, you can see the heritage of that. And I think I will just leave it at that. So how the story goes is that you find a fall guy, and then the populace feels better that they can pin this on someone and that somebody is going to pay for it. Justice is going to be served. Just like in the Lahaina unnatural fires, they had 3 or 4 fall guys that they lined up so that they could take the hit, so that the actual evildoers would get off scot-free. You know, I, for one, ain't falling for it, friends, and I have a feeling it's the same for you. I want to read to you a few snippets from this story. And again, here we have this image. It's an undated photo. How do you like them apples? You know, if you're working in journalism, you need to vet your sources. You need to have the dates of the photos. You need to have the person who took the photo. We need to know who this arm belongs to, and we need to know how they picked this guy up. So there is a rather lengthy post here from the United States Attorney's Office from the Central District of California. If it's coming out of California, friends, you can believe it's corrupt and probably something that you can't believe. Why they're connecting it to Florida? Well, you know, California doesn't think too highly of Florida. As a Californian, I think very highly of Florida. And I have done videos in the past telling you about the remarkable differences between the two states. The press release here says Florida man arrested on federal criminal complaint alleging he maliciously started what became the Palisades fire. So let me give you a little breakdown. I'll have a link for you in my Substack, peggyhall.substack.com. We never are told exactly how the police actually tracked him down. Let's see. Here is the press release from this district attorney with his Masonic symbols. And so some of this, let me see if I have it in order for you, friends. Rinderknecht, who lived in the area at some point. Oh, that's kind of generic, isn't it? Lived in which area? At what point? I mean, friends, you could not pass this off for actual journalism. He allegedly ignited the flames near a popular hiking trail in the hillside of a state park, overlooking the neighborhood at about 12 a.m. on New Year's Day. Now, that's about a week before the fire broke out. So that's strange as well. This was just moments after dropping off his Uber passengers. Well, who were the passengers? What are their names? Did they go to the police? How did this information get into the hands of the authorities? It says the passengers later recalled Rinderknecht appearing agitated and angry. Well, who are these passengers? Can they be trusted? What are their names? How long did it take for them to bring the information to the authorities? This is going on a year. And again, if I'm seeing symbols like this, I already know that the fix is in. All right. I wanted to give you a little bit more background here on this fellow. So after arriving at the hiking trail, Rinderknecht allegedly filmed the scene on his phone and listened to a rap song. Oh my gosh, this is so ridiculous. By artist Jossman, whose music video features him setting things on fire, the criminal complaint states. Now, what's really troubling to me about this, friends, and I'm sure that you can see it as well, that suddenly the music that you listen to, the videos that you download, the images that you get from Chat GPT, which is going to also figure into the story, suddenly now that makes you a likely suspect. Rinderneck had watched the same music video repeatedly in the days leading up to the fire, according to court papers. I could not find the court papers. If anybody can find those, please email me, support@thehealthyamerican.org. Rinderneck is believed to have then fled down the hiking path where he called 911 to report the blaze. Oh my gosh. Authorities said, as he was on the phone to dispatchers, he typed, "Are you at fault if a fire is lit?" He typed lift because of your cigarettes. He typed that into Chat GPT. Rinderneck allegedly drove away from the scene, but turned around to follow the responding fire trucks back to the scene. He then watched on and recorded several videos as crews battled the blaze, according to court filings. And the videos were among a trove of evidence discovered on his phone in the aftermath, authorities said. Months before the blaze in July, Rinderneck had ChatGPT generated a grim dystopian image of a burning city. So now that's illegal, friends. That is illegal. This is the press release, and there's not a lot of more information than what I gave you in that news summary. So you can read that on your own. I want to talk about this. The owners of a fire-resistant house in LA hope that the city rebuilds smarter. You're seeing the key words, aren't you there, friends? So owners of a fire-resistant house in LA hope that the city rebuilds smarter. And I think I grabbed a couple of things here to share with you. So this architect designed sustainable home that this man built, it survived the 2025 wildfire while neighboring homes burned, highlighting the importance of fireproof materials, defensible landscaping, and non-combustible elements like metal roofs and tempered glass to resist flames. Well, friends, bricks already are fireproof. So I want to share with you what I learned. Oh, here we have it. Amid rows of homes reduced to piles of ash by the Palisades fire stands a house that held out against the flames and smoke that scorched Northwest Los Angeles last week. So that was at the time of that writing. Here's what I want you to note. It belongs to avid environmentalists. That's a cue and a word for climate change believers. Dr. Karina Mayer, I'm going to share with you what's so interesting about this person, and her husband, Michael Kovac, an architect who designed the building with an emphasis on sustainability and wildfire resilience. Do you see those words? Sustainability and resilience. That's the UN all over the place. This couple was on the news in the aftermath of those fires. And when I see people that are trotted out on the news, that's when I do my digging. I want to know, how did they get on the news? Did they reach out to the news? Did the news reach out to them? Was this all planned in advance? So you can watch a video and listen to their interview. What I'm going to share with you is probably this architect is going to get a bit of business. Kovac and Mayer hope that society will take seriously the threats of climate change and extreme weather events and come up with smarter, realistic solutions. You see, friends, that's one of the end games of these intentional fires. And I'm going to share a little laundry list with you at the end of the video as to why they do this and how they benefit. He goes on to say, you know, we're not going to turn the climate ship around anytime soon. So in the meantime, whether it's dealing with floods in the Southeast or hurricanes or wildfires in California, we have to be realistic about what the threats are and design accordingly. So basically, you're going to live in a very ugly house without any landscaping, made out of metal. And that's how these environmentalists want it. So I did a little digging on this Dr. Karina Mayer, and people say, Peggy, how do you connect the clots like this? Well, I just pick up clues. And I thought, why are these people on the news? Who is this woman? And I started to look, and wouldn't you know it, she is a physician for Kaiser Permanente. Anybody in California knows, and many people outside of California, because I've covered it so much, how I just don't want to use the word evil. So I guess I'll use the word evil. Kaiser has been over firing people who refuse to become a human pincushion and not allowing patients to get the care that they need and deserve, because they also wouldn't become human pincushions or restrict their breathing. So here you have it. She's a pediatrician. And granted, this article was prior to the cooties hogwash, but she is very much in favor of immunizations. In fact, she is speaking, or spoke a couple of years ago, at the American Academy of Pediatrics, the ones that believe 6-month-old infants should be vaccinated for hepatitis. Actually, newborn infants, newborn babies should be vaccinated for hepatitis, even though you only contract it, if it even is what they say it is, through promiscuous sex and shared needles like drug addicts would. So, of course, it's perfectly appropriate for newborns. And of course, they want 6-month-olds to become human pincushions, specifically with the cooties cocktail. And here she is, one of the speakers, speaking at this American Academy of Pediatrics, which has nothing to do with the United States. It's just their trade name. And these doctors pay to be a part of this organization. It's a trade organization. And of course, it's funded by Big Pharma. And when you know it, climate change and child health, because of course, climate change has to do with your child's health. So I find that so bizarre that this is the woman that was on the news with her husband, and the report and the story and the video was all about pushing climate change. So that's what they want, friends. They want the government's influence to expand. They want despair and depression to rise, along with persistent health problems caused by the fire, the ash, the chemicals. They want people to rely on the government in terms of getting FEMA existence, loans to rebuild their houses. It just goes on and on. You know that this fire damage defies the physics of fire and logic. Stucco and red tiled roofs are burned to the ground and turned to ash, while nearby trees and bushes are unscathed. Plastic hoses, plastic trash cans, and kids' playhouses survive, while cars are basically melted. And then we're told that this was started by some Uber driver that somehow lived in France and now lives in Florida. You know that in the aftermath of these fires, electricity rates skyrocket, because it's also blamed. They were blaming it on the electric companies not having fire-proof their lines, although I see birds on those lines all the time and they're not getting electrocuted. Of course, insurance rates also skyrocket, and the power companies get richer because they're going to increase their rates and say that they have to in order to keep you safe. Of course, there's economic fallout as businesses are damaged, as people are moving, they can't find a place to live. And of course, the government land grabs are primed to occur with the properties that are going to be deemed too toxic to build on. The government expands, as does the individual's reliance on it in the form of FEMA, housing, and so forth. So it's the same old playbook. There's no reasonable explanation for this kind of devastation that we are told was started by this fellow here, if I can find him again. Yeah, it's all his fault. It's going to be blamed not only on him, but on global warming and the environment. And they're never going to answer the question, why weren't there any more fire trucks? Why were the firefighters to stand down? Why was the water turned off? Remember all of those other things that happened? And this was going on a year ago that the fire broke out on January 7th, 2024. Of course, the fire hydrants were out of water, no firefighters on the scene. The LA mayor, Karen Bass, was out of the country. The LA Fire Department budget was slashed. There were tons of fire trucks sitting on the ground, not being used. And of course, we were told that the LA fire chief focused on DEI initiatives instead of on readiness. And then Newsom being the disaster that he is, we all know about that. So you, as my savvy, sophisticated, healthy Americans, know that pinning it on this guy is just the fall guy to help people feel better about this absolutely atrocious devastation that we know is actually most likely planned and plotted so that they can inflict and implement their smart cities, get everything ready for the LA Olympics, which I'm not participating in watching that at all. And friends, I will have this written up for you in my Substack, peggyhall.substack.com. I will have a short video for you following this one. Give me a few minutes to get it queued up. And this is a video that a friend of mine did, Flat Earth Dave, and he did a short compilation of all of the strange things that just don't add up with the Charlie Kirk incident. So if you're interested in that, stay tuned, and I'll have that for you in just a few moments. I want to thank everybody for being on board. Let's see if I can get some of your comments here. And there we have it. Mike says, that does not look like a police detective's arm. Brian says, you speak the truth, Peggy. Meow says, everyone is in on it. And that random hand has a thumb over like a secret handshake. Yes, good catch, Margie. I love that my healthy Americans can really catch on to these things. And Matri Vibe says, Peggy, as far as I can tell, you're the only one I've seen exposing everything. Well, friends, I could only do it with your help. And I'm so grateful that you are here bringing your comments and looking at these things. Crystal says, why is there a drip on the bottom of the A? I know that, isn't that weird? It's like gunshot or blood. I don't care for it at all. You guys are sleuthers like I am. And I'm going to sign off now, friends. I want to thank you for being on board, and I will take a look at your comments off screen. Stay tuned. Take a look at the video I've got coming up for you. And there are many more things than what you see on that video, but it's a very good short and sweet compilation of things that just don't add up. All right. I look forward to seeing you tomorrow, and always over at peggyhall.substack.com.